There was a time when they said we were from Cleveland and Canton showed a little anger.
Yeah, they didn't like it.
They didn't like it.
The OJs, known for their soulful harmonies and timeless hits, seemed unstoppable at the height of their success. With songs that spoke of love, unity, and the struggles of everyday life, they became one of the greatest rhythm and blues groups of all time. But there was pain, betrayal, and heartbreak behind the fame and fortune. From bitter legal battles to personal tragedies, the journey of the OJs reveals the struggles of the 1960s music world. Their story is one of triumph overshadowed by disappointment, proving that even legends are not immune to hardship. What happened to the group that once ruled the charts? The truth behind their rise and fall is more heartbreaking than fans ever imagined. Grass to Grace. With 10 gold albums, 9 platinum albums, 10 #1 hits, and places in both the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the R&B Music Hall of Fame, the OJs stand out as one of the most successful rhythm and blues groups over the past 60 years.
Love the OJs, you guys. Congratulations on, this is the 6th decade, I guess, now?
Yeah.
6th decade.
The singing group called the OJs started in the late 1950s. They began small but grew through the 1960s, making hit songs and albums in their most popular era. Even though younger people today don't know them that much, these men left their mark on the world with their voices and how they put their band together. The OJs started in the late 1950s at McKinley High School, with friendships dating back to the 1940s. Eddie Levert, born on June 16, 1942, and Walter Williams, born on August 25, 1942, were childhood buddies and two of the first members. They started singing gospel music together in Canton, Ohio. Then, in 1959, they teamed up with school friends William Powell, born on January 20, 1942, Bill Isles, born on January 4, 1941 in McCattonville, North Carolina, and Bobby Massey, born on March 9, 1940, to make a rhythm and blues group called The Triumphs. 2 years later, in 1961, the Triumphs changed their name to the Mascots and released a song called Miracles. In 1963, they switched their name again to the OJs to honor a Cleveland radio disc jockey named Eddie OJ by 1965.
Now, you came to the name the OJs. You were the Mascots, you were the Triumphs. How did you decide the OJs? What's the connection of the name for us?
And Eddie OJ, who was a disc jockey in Cleveland, took us to meet with Berry Gordy. Well, that deal.
The OJs had their new name for just 2 years, but they had sung together since 1959. After all that time without big wins, the first member walked away. That was Bill Isles, the only original member not from Canton, Ohio. After Isles left, the group stayed as four for a while and released their first album, Coming Through. The same year, Isles stepped away for family reasons. They kept going as a quartet until the early 1970s and had some smaller hits. Another original member, Bobby Massey, left to work in record production in 1971, leaving them as three. William Powell was the last original member to go, leaving just the two old friends. Powell stepped away after big success when he got sick with colon cancer in 1975. He passed away on May 26, 1977, at 35 years old, after a fight with cancer. After Powell passed, the two who stayed, Eddie Levert and Walter Williams, decided to bring in another person to make a trio again. They picked Sammy Strain, who was already known from singing with Little Anthony and the Imperials. Strain stayed with the OJs until 1992, then went back to the Imperials. When Strain left, Nathaniel Best, born on December 13, 1960, filled in for a bit, followed by Eric Grant, who is still with the group today. The first stretch of the OJs had all the original members and even grew to include Frankie Little Jr., who joined as a songwriter and guitarist. He helped Eddie Levert sing lead on songs like Do the Jerk in 1964 and Down at the Corner in 1962. During that early time, they had some small success with songs like Lipstick Traces in 1962 and Lonely Drifter in 1963, which was their biggest hit. Lonely Drifter was the first of their songs to make it onto the national Billboard Hot 100 chart, reaching number 93. That time ended when Isles left in 1965, but it was not the last they saw of him. His son, Dwayne Isles, told reporters that his dad was the OJ's tour manager between 1971 and 1974, when they put out their biggest hits, Love Train and Backstabbers. After Bill Isles left, the group was down to four. This was the year just before they achieved stardom. During this stretch, Frankie Little Jr. was still around, helping with words and lead singing on 1966's Pretty Words and 1967's Oh How You Hurt Me. Frankie left during this time to chase a relationship with a woman he had left behind in Cleveland while the group was in Los Angeles. In 2021, it was confirmed that a body found in Twinsburg, Ohio, in 1982 was Frankie. In 1967, the four of them first made it into the rhythm and blues top 10 with I'll Be Sweeter Tomorrow Than I Was Today. The next year, in 1968, they started working with writers and producers Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff. This team brought the OJ's music the smooth sound of Philadelphia soul, with full instruments, funky beats, and words about real-life issues. After Bobby Massey left, the OJ's saw huge success both in the United States and around the world. Now a trio, they reached the top of their game during this time, something that might never have happened had they stuck to their 1972 plan to quit music altogether. Instead of giving up, the three original members left. Eddie Levert, William Powell, and Walter Williams kept recording together. Because of that, the OJ's got signed to the Philadelphia International label by Gamble and Huff, who they had been working with for years. With Philadelphia International, the OJ's shot to fame fast. In 1972, they released their first million-seller, Backstabbers, from an album with the same name. That initiated a long run of top hits, including For the Love of Money in 1973, which hit number 9 on the pop charts, and the disco-flavored pop hit I Love Music Part 1 in 1975. Other big songs from this time were Sunshine, 992 Arguments, Time to Get Down, and the number 1 pop hit Love Train. Like Love Train, many of their songs made the charts. Put Your Hands Together peaked at pop number 10, and I Love Music hit pop number 5. They made more popular songs too, like Give the People What They Want, Livin' for the Weekend, Message in Our Music, Darlin' Darlin' Baby Sweet Tender Love, and Let Me Make Love to You, though those didn't chart as high right then. This was when their music became known all over the world and was charted in places like the United Kingdom and Canada. Love Train reached number 1 in the United States, 9 in the United Kingdom, and 15 in Canada. I Love Music reached number 5 in the United States and 13 in the United Kingdom. Backstabbers reached number 3 in the United States, 14 in the United Kingdom, and 39 in Canada. After William Powell left, the OJ's kept going after his departure and death, now with Sammy Strain from Little Anthony and the Imperials. Together they had decent success, though not like before. That doesn't mean they didn't make good music or charts. In 1978, they put out Used to Be My Girl, their last top 5 hit, and kept landing smaller songs on rhythm and blues charts through the 1980s. Like in their big years, they charted overseas too, hitting the United Kingdom charts between 1972 and 1983, with 4 songs in the top 20. With Strain, they released 14 albums, including Message in the Music, So Full of Love, Identify Yourself, and Love Fever. From those, they had smaller hits like Used to Be My Girl and Cry Together from So Full of Love, and Sing a Happy Song and Forever Mine from Identify Yourself. They released a 1987 album called Let Me Touch You, which was a bit of a breakout, including their first number 1 rhythm and blues hit, Lovin' You. With Strain, they made 3 more albums, one for Christmas. Toward the end of this era, their popularity and sales dropped, with little comebacks here and there. After charting in rhythm and blues, they never hit big in pop again. Among all the members who have joined and exited the OJ either through death or for personal ambition, Eddie Levert and Walter Williams share a special connection that lasted a lifetime, something most people will never know. They have been friends and partners for almost 65 years. We still value our friendship, our commitment to each other and the group, and our love for good music, Walter says. He goes on, we probably could have had great careers on our own, but I don't think either of us could have ever been as big as the OJ's. Despite their success, they experienced personal and professional tragedies. Eddie Levert tragedies.
It still hurts, man. It's still,
I don't think any other artist from this time has gone through as many heartbreaks and losses as Eddie Levert. In the 60s and 70s, Eddie Levert was known as one of 3 members of the popular rhythm and blues group, the OJ's. His sons Gerald and Sean grew up seeing their dad sing the group's hit songs in front of big audiences and decided they wanted to do the same. With help from a family friend named Mark Gordon, they started a group called Levert and introduced a fresh wave of rhythm and blues music that pulled in a new crowd of listeners. But like many successful music groups, the weight of fame took over. leading to tragedies that hit the group and the Levert family hard. For the Levert family, singing runs deep in their veins. Eddie, one of the original members of the OJs, a group famous in the 1960s and 70s for songs like Love Train, Stairway to Heaven, and Used to Be My Girl, had 5 kids: Gerald, Sean, Candace, Eddie Jr., and Ryan. Their home in suburban Cleveland was lively, with a tennis court, a pool, and a basement full of instruments and gear that Gerald loved to play around with. Even though Eddie wanted all his kids to go to college, their mom, Martha Levert, said part of him was okay with his sons following his path, so he kept bringing new instruments into the house. As Gerald and Sean got more serious about music, they teamed up with Mark Gordon and formed Levert in 1983. Gerald wrote songs for the group while Eddie, his father, worked hard to get them noticed. "I ran around for a whole year with their tapes," he said in an episode of Unsung. They finally released their first album, I Get Hot, in 1985 on a small label called Tempray Records. Their first single, I'm Still, did well enough to land them a deal with Atlantic Records, who were excited to have the next generation of Leverts on board. The OJs were like the best rhythm and blues group of their time, so to have their kids meant a lot to us, and it was a really exciting time, said Sylvia Rohn, an executive at Atlantic Records back then. Levert's first album with Atlantic was Bloodline. Gerald and Mark wrote and produced most of the songs, and it gave the group their first big hit, Pop, 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 Pop Goes My Mind. That song shot past other popular tracks like Lionel Richie's Dancing on the Ceiling and Lisa Lisa and Cult Jam's All Cried Out to reach the top of the rhythm and blues charts. On their second album, the record company wanted a song that could jump from rhythm and blues to pop. In 1987, they pulled it off with Casanova, a lively rhythm and blues track that hit #1 on the rhythm and blues charts and 5 on the pop charts. While Levert was achieving fame, Gerald and Mark also wrote and produced songs for other singers, like Written All Over Your Face, for the Rude Boys and Games, for Chucky Booker. In 1991, Gerald put out his first solo album, Private Line, and had a hit with the title song. One of the biggest songs from that album was Baby Hold On to Me, a beautiful duet with his dad, Eddie Sr. Gerald's solo success started the end for Levert. After his solo work, the group made 2 more albums before splitting up. His brother Sean said, "If I'm not doing it with Gerald, I'm not doing it at all," Eddie told Unsung. Hip-hop took over as the 1990s wound down, and rhythm and blues weren't as big anymore. Gerald tried to switch things up again, joining Keith Sweat and Johnny Gill to form LSG, but he couldn't find the same success he had with Levert. Unfortunately, he hurt his Achilles tendon, which led him to take a mix of prescription and over-the-counter pain pills, making it hard for him to tour. Then tragedy hit the family in 2006 when Gerald Levert passed away in his Cleveland, Ohio, home on November 10th at age 40. The Geauga County Coroner's Office said he died from acute intoxication, and they called it an accident. Autopsy reports showed Gerald had a deadly mix of Vicodin, Percocet, Darvocet, Xanax, and 2 over-the-counter antihistamines in his body when he died. Gerald's death came just a few months after he and Eddie Sr. finished their book, I Got Your Back, A Father and Son, Keep It Real, about love, fatherhood, family, and friendship. 2 years later, in 2008, as the family was recovering from the death of a young artist who would have continued his father's legacy, they faced another loss when Sean Levert died in an Ohio jail at age 39. According to Cleveland.com, Sean was ordered to serve a 10-year prison term for owing more than $90,000 in unpaid child support for 3 kids. He went to prison on March. While there, he couldn't get his anti-anxiety medicine, Xanax, and 6 days later, he died from withdrawal effects. Gerald's ultimate goal was winning a Grammy Award, something his mom talked about on Unsung. He felt that if he got the Grammy, he would have reached all the goals he was aiming for, she said. In 2008, Gerald got a posthumous Grammy Award for Best Traditional Rhythm and Blues Performance. His mother Martha and brother Sean were there to accept it for him. Then, in December 2024, Eddie's youngest daughter Ryan passed away from problems with lupus, an autoimmune disease. Her cousin, Gerald's daughter Carlisa Levert, posted a sweet tribute on Instagram on December 27th. I am so thankful that you don't have to go through any more pain. Forever, my sweet girl. I will miss you, my twin. According to reports, Ryan fought lupus, a disease that causes swelling and harm all over the body. The family hasn't officially said lupus killed her, but it's been talked about among them, and Ryan called herself a lupus fighter on her social media. Looking back on these losses, Eddie told the Plain Dealer, I wish I could tell you I had a sense of why, but I don't. I still wonder, was it something I did? He said he had changed to be a better dad and friend, admitting the pain cut deep but stressing he had to keep going. Despite all this pain, Eddie and his wife, Raquel Capleton, still shared happy times with their family. According to Carlesia, Ryan, who often joined Eddie on the podcast The Levered Opinion, was bright and loving, making her loss sting even more. Nevertheless, Eddie was not the only one who experienced personal tragedies. Walter Williams could be called a hero because he's been battling multiple sclerosis for 30 years and still manages to do his dance moves perfectly when he performs on stage with the OJs. He also volunteers as a national ambassador for the Multiple Sclerosis Society and speaks for Multiple Sclerosis Active Source. This condition started with a numb big toe. When he noticed the odd feeling, Walter Williams was driving home from an OJ's show in Buffalo, New York. The group, known for making hit rhythm and blues songs, had just gotten new stage clothes, so he thought maybe his new shoes were too tight. But soon, the numbness moved from his toe to his whole foot and then up his leg, right in the middle of an OJ's tour. I probably stopped in every hospital in every city trying to find out what was going on, Williams said. A doctor in Los Angeles figured out that Williams had multiple sclerosis, and the Cleveland Clinic confirmed it. My family was heartbroken, Williams said during an interview at a local hotel. He got the tough news just before he turned 40 in 1983. Now, almost 30 years later, this rock and roll Hall of Famer from Shaker Heights is speaking openly for the first time about his fight with multiple sclerosis. This disease causes swelling and attacks the body's central nervous system. Williams is also a paid spokesman for Biogen IDEC, a company that makes the multiple sclerosis drug Avonex, which he uses. Multiple sclerosis made it hard for Williams to keep up with the group's busy tour schedule and tricky dance steps on stage, but he kept going anyway. We do a lot of turns and spins, stuff like that, and it was a constant effort not to lose my balance, he said. When the disease was at its worst, Williams felt numb from the waist down. When I touched my legs, it felt like I was touching this, he said, reaching out to tap on a small table with a stone top. Financial struggles. Personal challenges are not the only struggle that the OJ band went through. The shiny and exciting side of the music world often covers up the more challenging, darker parts. And for the OJs, the fights they had behind the scenes were just as fierce as the ones they dealt with on stage. One of their first big money troubles came from their early record deals. In the 60s and 70s, the music business was known for taking advantage of singers, and the OJs weren't left out of that mess. They first signed with King Records, a company that didn't have a good name for treating its artists right. While the group got to record and release songs, the money side of their deal left them with almost nothing to show for all their hard work. King Records wasn't paying the OJs the royalties they had earned, which turned into a real problem as the group became more popular. Even with songs topping the charts and shows selling out, the OJs weren't seeing the cash they deserved. This money gap pushed them to rethink their decisions, eventually leading them to leave King Records. But getting free from such a lousy contract wasn't simple. They had to battle to claim what was rightfully theirs. Their next step was a big one. The OJs signed with Philadelphia International Records in 1972, which started their climb to fame. This new phase brought them more success in sales, but they still had money fights to deal with. The label was run by Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff, who had an excellent ear for music and helped create the exceptional Philly soul sound. Still, the business end wasn't perfect. Many artists, including the OJs, got caught up in complicated contracts that didn't always work out well for them. As their career got bigger, so did their money worries. In the 1980s and 1990s, the group faced many legal challenges tied to arguments over royalties and who owned their music. Their success caught attention, but also sparked several court fights over who had rights to their famous songs. With music video channels and digital streaming starting, problems about who owned the music got trickier. The OJs had to figure out the messy world of royalties, publishing rights, and licensing fees. It wasn't just the contracts that caused headaches. Personal money troubles snuck in too. Members like Eddie Levert found themselves wrestling with the stress of handling their finances, which meant supporting family and facing the usual traps that come with being famous. When big money rolls in, it's easy for things to spin out of control, especially if you don't know much about managing it. The OJs also had to deal with business partners who cared more about their own pockets than the group's well-being. At one point, they got tangled in a legal mess with an old manager they thought was cheating them out of their earnings. These court battles brought a lot of worry, and the band started to see that in an industry full of people looking to cash in, they had to watch who they trusted. It was a hard lesson many singers learned too late, but for the OJs, it woke them up. As the OJs got more successful, They also felt growing pressure to keep making hits and staying in the game in a music world that was changing fast. Their early songs were influenced by the talent of Gamble and Huff and the Philly soul sound, but keeping that success going while trying to grow became a constant fight. At the peak of their fame, the OJs had to juggle what their fans wanted with the harsh truths of the music business. The world of rhythm and blues was shifting quickly, and so were listeners' tastes. Disco came up, then new wave, hip-hop, and other styles followed in the 1980s. The OJs had made their name with smooth, slow songs and funky tracks, but there was always the question of how to change without losing what made them special. This creative struggle was extra tough for Walter Williams, who, along with Eddie, was a leading singer for the group. He often felt pulled between what he wanted to create and the need to keep selling records. As the music business moved toward the more electronic sounds of the 1980s, the OJs had to stick with their classic style or try out the new trends taking over the charts. They went with a bit of both. They kept delivering their soulful, slow songs, but dipped into more modern sounds, which didn't always hit the same with fans as their older stuff. Despite these challenges, the OJ established their legacy and influence on rhythm and blues. Awards and recognitions over the years. The OJs made a big mark on the music world that lasted a long time, shaping how rhythm, blues, and soul sounded for years to come. Their songs, full of strong feelings and important messages, touched countless singers who came after them. They stood out because they could mix smooth singing with words about real-life struggles, giving a voice to people who didn't often get heard. Even years after their best days, their music kept inspiring new artists, and many of today's singers showed respect for what the OJs built. Over the years, the OJs worked with younger artists who grew up hearing their records. In the early 2000s, they teamed up with neo-soul singers who loved their way of doing things. One big collaboration was with Eric Benet, who adored classic soul and got to record with them. Their reach went beyond soul, into hip-hop too, with rap artists using parts of their songs. In 2002, Jay-Z took a piece of their hit, Give the People What They Want, for his song, A Dream. Other big rap names like Wu-Tang Clan and 50 Cent also pulled from the OJ's music, showing how their sound stayed fresh and important. In 2010, the OJs was honored at the BET Awards, where modern rhythm and blues stars like Usher and John Legend sang their songs as a tribute. John Legend especially talked about how their way of telling stories in music shaped his writing. The OJs showed up at events with singers like Alicia Keys and Jill Scott, who said the group helped spark their careers. Their classic sound connected old and new generations, proving real soul music doesn't lose its power. Even in 2025, their influence holds firm, with younger musicians still finding ideas in their unforgettable tunes and words. The OJs won many awards, praise, and nominations because of their music. They got gold discs from the Recording Industry Association of America, meaning they sold over 500,000 copies in the United States for these singles: Backstabbers, Love Train, For the Love of Money, I Love Music, and Used to Be My Girl. They also earned gold discs for these albums: Backstabbers, Ship Ahoy, The OJs, Live in London, Survival, Travelin' at the Speed of Thought, Message in the Music, Emotionally Yours, and Family Reunion. In 1990, the OJs won their first music award, an American Music Award. 2 years later, in 1992, they got the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People Image Award, Hall of Fame Award. They were given the National Rhythm and Blues Foundation Pioneer Award in 1998. The awards and honors kept rolling in during the 21st century. In 2002, they won the Soul Train Music Award for the Quincy Jones Award for Career Achievement. In 2004, they were put into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame. And in 2005, they got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That last one stirred up some trouble, though. All the original members except Bill Iles were included, and the only newer member to make it in was Sammy Strain. The next year, in 2006, they were added to the Grammy Hall of Fame for their song, Love Song. In 2009, they received the Black Entertainment Television Lifetime Achievement Award, picked up the Trumpet Award in 2011, and in 2013 they were welcomed into the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame. Finally, they got into the Grammy Hall of Fame again for their song, For the Love of Money. What do you think about the OJs? Which of their songs do you remember? Let's go down memory lane together. I would like to read your answers in the comments. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.